A very warm welcome and hello to our JagranJosh family. You and I meet each other once again, and this time around we are going to talk about the VARC strategy for the upcoming XAT exam. Unfortunately or fortunately or whatever, when it comes to English, every exam ends up using a different nomenclature for their English section. Now, the CAT calls it VARC, and that's what you are likely to be familiar with, so I'm sticking to that label. But the truth is, the XAT does not even call it VARC, and we can see that very easily when we explore the paper pattern. So, here it is. We have taken you through this in our earlier sessions as well, but there is no harm in reviewing it quickly once. So as you can see, they call it verbal and logical ability. 26 questions. So that's going to be our area of focus, and I hope that you have subscribed to our channel because we keep on bringing you tons of content. कौन सा ऐसा पहलू है करियर का जो हमने जागरण जोश पे अछूता छोड़ा हो? तो आप चाहे जिस भी एग्जाम की तैयारी कर रहे हो, जिस भी चीज़ को लेकर के आपको चिंता हो, अरे सबका जवाब यहीं मिलेगा. And in case you browse and you not able to find what you're looking for, hey, do reach out to us, drop in a comment below, and we would love to create even that aspect for you. We are totally committed to your career. We want you to be totally committed to us by subscribing to the channel and pressing the notification bell so that whenever we upload something, you're the first one to know. So let's go ahead and dive into verbal and logical ability segment of the XAT exam. So when we talk about VA and logic, so unlike quite a few other exams, when it comes to the XAT, we do not really have any sectional time limit, which means that you can afford to spend your time across all the three sections whichever way you fancy. And if English is your strength, then of course that is the area that you do plan to maximize your score from. And after this session, you will know how. So although there is no sectional time limit, but we know that the number of questions is 26. The paper has more or less become stable, and the last 3 years we haven't seen much change in terms of question numbers. The only change that has been brought in this year is that essay has been dropped, and now you only have GK. The overall duration also has reduced consequently, but other than that, when it comes to part 1 of the paper, still the same. And if I take you through XAT 22 verbal ability and logic, this is what we saw. So some 12 reading comprehension questions and 2 poem comprehension questions that I'd probably put under reading comprehension, but because it is special, because it is different, it is there. Then parajumbles, just like the CAT exam. Grammar, unlike the CAT exam, and then they test your vocabulary using fill in the blank questions. Apart from that, we also get critical reasoning questions. More on these later, but then if you simply look at 23, you'd see more or less same areas with a teeny weeny change. So we had a para completion, more of a conventional variety of para completion, but then the only other change is the marks or the number of questions that are allocated, and they are right here on your screen. So let us go ahead and talk about each one of these areas one by one and see how you can start your preparation. Starting with RC. Now, reading comprehension is common to the CAT and the XAT, and I think most of you have also appeared for the CAT exam, so you know what to do. But then these passages are similar to the CAT, but there are a couple of key differences. So number one, the passages in the XAT are likely to be smaller, which is good for you because that means less time spent on reading the passage. In fact, if I go back to the past of the CAT, there have been years when instead of the passages, they actually ended up giving us something that can only be called a paragraph. So a paragraph followed by one question, a slightly bigger paragraph followed by 2 questions. So stay prepared for any of those things. Okay. But for the last 3 years, we are getting 4 passages with 3 questions each. And the thing is that when it comes to XAT RC, the difficulty level is usually higher because of 2 reasons. The first is their selection of passages. So we can expect more passages based on philosophy, particularly ethics. then we can expect more passages dealing with nuanced understanding of the social challenges. So for example, issues related to gender identity, issues related to climate, minorities, those are the kind of things that are more likely to appear. So even if XAT picks up something on, let us say, artificial intelligence, you would notice that the emphasis is going to be a lot more on the philosophical, the ethical side and the human impact side of the topic. The other thing that may make it challenging for some of us is that the options can at times be ambiguous. You read them and there is no answer choice that can be termed absolutely 100% correct or right, and they are also quite close. Although in one of the interviews, that convener has said that they will reduce the ambiguity, but the proof of a cake, the proof of a pudding in its eating, right? अब वो बोल तो दिया उन्होंने, देखते हैं पेपर के बाद ही पता चलेगा, बट तब तक तो आप पेपर दे चुके होंगे ना, तो इसलिए be prepared for that ambiguity, and the best strategy in such ambiguous scenarios is to do what? To stick to the elimination approach instead of the selection approach. Mind you, you are looking for an answer choice that is least wrong. Think of it this way and you do well. And other than that, I think when it comes to the preparation bit, things are going to be identical to the CAT exam. I still want you to continue reading for 20-25 minutes every day. Read something that you find challenging, prioritize things like philosophy and social issues, and you generally be in good stead. Apart from that, we also get poem comprehension where they give us poetry and then that's followed by questions. Sach bolun to mera dil bada dukhta hai ise dekh karke, and the reason is, yaar, poems are supposed to be felt. The poet wrote it because he wanted to touch your heart, he wanted to stir your emotions in some way, and here in the exam we are converting them into an intellectual, a rational exercise, but it is what it is. So do, of course, we every year do see a poem, so you need to be ready for that. And in the run up to the exam, I would recommend that you start reading at least one poem every day. And here's a tip: when you read them at home, read them aloud. Unlike passages where I want you to seal your lips while reading them, poetry should be read aloud because it has tempo, rhythm, meter. There are certain things that become apparent only when you speak. You are able to connect to the soul better. So read a poem every day and that's going to be very useful. Apart from that, poetry works with allusions. There are all these indirect references. They may talk about the moon, but the moon is not the moon but your beloved. They may talk about a girl, but the girl is not a girl but the god herself. Okay, so all those indirect references, be ready for them. And every year we see questions based on literary devices, which are also known as figures of speech. So make sure that you do go ahead and revise that entire area, or if you haven't studied it yet, learn that entire area on priority. So you remember all those things like metaphor, simile, assonance, personification, alliteration, onomatopoeia, synecdoche, all those things. So those major 20-25 figures of speech, make sure that you know what they are and make sure that you are able to spot them from an example. And if you do that, you're going to be better prepared than majority of the candidates in this particular area. Then the next part is that grammar. Now grammar is of course new to the XAT exam. We don't get to see that in the CAT exam. Now when we look at the questions, they are going to be mostly error identification questions. So they typically give us a few sentences. They can be 4, 5, 6 sentences, and the directions ask us to choose the sentences that are grammatically correct or the sentences that are grammatically incorrect. So make sure that you do read that point carefully and then go ahead and solve it. But apart from that, when it comes to RC, they get into these newer themes, they get into nuanced understandings, ambiguous options. In grammar, I can say that XAT is mostly a conventional exam. So historically, there are a lot of different papers that test our understanding of the grammar. And in those areas, there are some high frequency topics that are tested. because those are the common mistakes that people make. So that is no exception. This also goes ahead and tests you along those high frequency areas like your understanding of pronouns, particularly pronoun antecedent agreement, your understanding of prepositions, tenses, particularly conditional sentences, your understanding of subject verb agreement. So these are the kind of things that are relatively high frequency in an exam like the XAT, but then we cannot really limit ourselves to just these areas when it comes to our preparation. You do well to pick up a grammar book which deals with the basics. So the one that you used in your high school, for example, when I was in high school, my teacher used High School English Grammar and Composition by Renan Martin. So I used that. Maybe you have some other book lying around from your school days with you. Pick that book up and read it twice. That may mean that if you start today, you're probably going looking at reading 20, 25, 30 pages a day, but that's fine. It's absolutely nothing for you. It is probably going to take barely 25 hours even if you read it twice. And 25 hours, now that I put it that way, is that really too high for an area that can help you clear the cutoffs and get a call from a college which can make your life? Right? So make sure that you do work on it, and additionally do practice a lot of mixed bag questions. When we go through a grammar book, we of course go through these topic specific exercises, so you're reading pronouns and the questions that you're solving are based on pronouns, so you mentally anticipate errors of pronouns, but in the exam you wouldn't know where the error comes from, and therefore it'll be an absolutely wonderful idea to practice mixed bag tests so that your brain stays sharp and learns to spot an error irrespective of what area that error belongs to. Then moving over to CAT critical reasoning. Now CR is asked even in the CAT exam. It is a part of reading comprehension there. But in the XAT exam, yes, it is a part of reading comprehension too, but then you also get direct questions based on critical reasoning. And XAT is one of those papers where, dare I say, critical reasoning is probably an absolutely important area. And the reason is, number one, you get some RC questions that can be solved easily if you are good at critical reasoning. Number two, there are these direct paragraph based critical reasoning questions that we get in the exam. And number three, it is a precursor to your decision making section. So if you want to get those 21 questions right, then my friend, you must go all out and master critical reasoning. But now, unfortunately, this is an area that has never been taught to us back in school, back in college, unless you're studying philosophy where you have picked up formal logic or whatever. So in that case, what do? My recommendation is start off by attending the lectures, the classes, the sessions of critical reasoning. If you're studying, if you're preparing on your own, YouTube is your friend. Go ahead and you would notice that there are quite a few people who have built lectures or sessions around the key question types. Okay, so you definitely want to learn to master identifying the assumptions inherent in an argument. You would want to become good at learning how one can strengthen and weaken an argument, learn to master logical flaws, and most importantly, learn to identify the inference, the valid inference on the basis of the information provided. So these 5 are going to be like the dominant high frequency question types for you. And once you've gone through the lectures, you would basically practice using previous year questions. If your accuracy rate in those previous year questions is great, well, rejoice, become happy, you're ready for the exam. But if you feel that, hey, I am still not at 70-80% accuracy when it comes to critical reasoning, practice more questions. So if you have access to some material, go ahead and use that. If you are studying on your own, I would suggest that you refer to GMAT questions. And I'm referring to GMAT questions because they are easily available online. And their quality is also usually quite good. So that will give you a fill. Okay, now moving over to the verbal ability part of the exam. So within VA we get essentially two question types. So you get parajumbles and para completion. These are multiple choice questions, unlike TETA or non-MCQs in the CAT. And the para completion here is conventional. What I mean by that is that they'll give you a paragraph with a blank. Now you need to pick up the right sentence, you need to choose the right sentence for that blank from the 5 options that are given to you. The CAT is experimenting with a newer type for the last 3 years. They are mostly still conventional, and I'm sure you'd find it easy. Now when it comes to questions like parajumbles and para completion, frankly speaking, they rely on a lot of other abilities. So they test your comprehension, they test your logic, they test your at times even grammar. So if you work on these 3 areas that we've talked about before we reached this juncture in this session, you definitely have a very sound base. Now the only thing that you need to add to it is the technique through which you need to approach the question in order to arrive at the answer faster, in order to push up your accuracy rates. And once again, if you are not working with someone, you can always use YouTube and you'd find sessions where the techniques for these questions have been taught. And after that, yes, don't forget to practice. And then we also get vocabulary based questions. The only vocab based question that XAT has asked in quite a few years is a fill in the blank questions, where they typically give you a sentence with 3 to 4 blanks. Now the options, the options are amazing. They will pick up words which are confusibles. Remember confusibles, 2 words that are like close, but there are some very subtle, very important differences. For example, if I ask you for the difference between, say, authentic and genuine, the difference between few and little, so these kind of things. Or they can get into homophones, words that sound, words that have differences in spelling but they sound alike and they happen to have different meanings, and that throws a lot of people off. In case the exam is not testing you on confusibles and homophones and gives you words which do not belong to these 2 categories, even then you'd find that they can be challenging in the sense that the words may not be absolute high frequency words. And therefore it is a great idea to go ahead and start working on your vocabulary by taking out 15 to 30 minutes from your schedule every day, where you go ahead and learn new words. And in case you are somebody who learns those words and like, यार मैं ना पढ़ता हुआ तो मैंने देखे words सर पर मैं भूल जाता हूँ, तो यार कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. उस केस में you can use associations and clustering methods to enhance your retention. So association basically means you link a word and its meaning with something else. That something else can be a sound, that something else can be an image, that something else can be another word, that something else can be a feeling within you, that something else can be learning roots. That's also a way of clustering and association, right? And clustering is grouping. Learn words built around the same theme or maybe the same root. In fact, I have recorded sessions on YouTube where I've talked about vocab strategy and how to become good at it. You can go ahead and refer to that in order to take more pointers. So what are you waiting for? Now that you know all that gets asked and how you can start your preparation, go ahead and start straight away. Do not waste even a single second. Just go on, read this. Memorable people do memorable things. When appropriate, be bold in your undertakings. So यार सिकंदर की तरह जीना है. Live like a king. I know a lot of you, or at least some of you, you've gone through the CAT exam and you have these doubts, but then यार एग्जाम ही तो है, जान थोड़ी है, कर लेंगे तैयारी, निकाल लेंगे पेपर. So अपने आप को पहचानो यार. अनलिमिटेड पावर है तुम में. जिस दिन तुम अपनी पे आ गए, जिस दिन तुम रोज पढ़ने पे आ गए, देश का ऐसा कोई एग्जाम नहीं जो तुम निकाल नहीं पाओगे. एंड दैट्स हाउ आई वांट टू रिमेंबर यू. ओके, तो फटाफट से वीडियो को करो लाइक, चैनल को करो सब्सक्राइब, और उसके बाद क्या करो, जाकर के पढ़ाई शुरू करो, इस पेपर में अपना बेस्ट दे करके आना है, राइट? सो गुड लक एंड आई विल सी यू इन द नेक्स्ट वन एंड हैव अ ग्रेट टाइम फ्रॉम द एंटायर जागरण जोश।